أهلا وسهلا بحضراتكم مرة تانية في برنامج العمران والإنسان. في الحلقة السابقة في اللينك اللي موجود فوق احنا كنا اتكلمنا عن عناصر التشكيل الفراغي أو الاعتبارات اللي لازم ناخدها في التشكيل الفراغي اللي احنا بنعمله، سواء الريجولاريتي، السكيل، البروبورشن، الليجيبيليتي، السيكونس والبوزيتيفيتي بتاعة الفراغ. في حلقة النهاردة إن شاء الله هنعرض مثال بيوضح ازاي التصميم الداخلي باختلاف البدائل بتاعته ممكن يكون مؤثر بشكل كبير على الانطباع الخاص بالمستخدمين بالنسبة للفراغ وإدراكهم للفراغ وكمان التفاعل بتاعهم مع الفراغ. برغم ان ممكن الفراغ نفسه يكون ثابت وظيفيا، يعني هو نفس الوظيفة، نفس الابعاد، نفس الحجم، نفس العناصر الاساسية اللي موجودة فيه، اماكن الفتحات، اماكن الفيو، يعني حاجات محددات واحدة، لكن التصميم نفسه او الديزاين نفسه او الستايل نفسه بتاع الفراغ هو اللي بيفرض التأثير ده. هنشوف دلوقتي مع بعض المثال، وإن شاء الله نلتقي في حلقات أخرى من البرنامج. النهاردة هنعرض مثال، تجربة لتصميم أو لتصور تصميم داخلي لفراغ واحد بكذا بديل، يوضح إزاي ممكن التصميم برغم إن الفراغ واحد بنفس أبعاده، بنفس ظروفه، بنفس الوظيفة بتاعته، يقدر التصميم يأثر على الإدراك، إزاي الأفراد بيدركوا الفراغ ده من جوه، الانطباع والتفاعل مع الفراغ من جوه. هو الفراغ اللي هنتكلم عنه هنا هو غرفة سكن لطلاب، مطلوب بوضع تصميم داخلي ليها يحقق وظائف محددة للطلاب اللي موجودين جوه الغرفة دي، من نوم ومذاكرة والأنشطة المختلفة التانية اللي ممكن يعملوها في الغرفة.
These three interior designers have been given a photograph of an empty college dorm room. They have free rein to design it in any way they please.
My name's Laura. My design style is modern, tailored, and classic.
My name is Patrick, and my style is exuberant, charismatic, and colorful. I'm Xavier, and my design style is purposeful, narrative, and full of life.
No clients, no restrictions, just blank space.
Okay, so my first impressions of this dorm room are, thank God I'm not in college. It's very standard. It's very uninspiring. This is a place where people are coming to get inspired to learn. And it's kind of a bummer that dorm rooms don't reflect that.
I understand that dorm rooms are notoriously bland and boring. However, we can definitely do better here.
Everything that you do to it has to be able to be removed at the end of the year. But that's a long time, and you want to make it your own, and you want to make it feel like an inspiring place that really reflects your personality. First of all, I'd like to eliminate the idea of these bunk beds. Nobody wants to climb up and down into a bunk bed every night or morning. I don't like bunk beds. I always feel like I'm going to roll right out of them and onto the floor in the middle of the night.
If you have a space that is on the smaller side, creating different places to be can actually make it feel more spacious. So even though in this original space, they did have a lot of functionality in that you have your bed and you have your desk and it's all in one place, it feels juvenile and it feels cramped. It's not very graceful. It's not very mature, sophisticated. If we can spread it out and make it feel more sort of luxurious, I think that we can make a much better space for these two college students.
I'm gonna kind of try to dismantle these bunk beds. Most college bunk beds are actually, made up of some parts that are stacked. You can usually unscrew them and then move this lower part of the bed down to the ground. So that's exactly what we're gonna do.
If we actually put a bed on each side, we can upholster a headboard along the back and along the top, and then we can have lots of pillows pillows on here and just really make it feel so lovely. And you can see already that now it's almost like a lounge space, more so than just for sleeping. It's for hanging out. And then we can put a desk on each side and just kind of continue that sense of symmetry that makes it feel very calm. If you have a day bed and then you have a desk separately, there's more places to be in the room.
Rather than two bunk beds, I think it'd be a great idea to have a upholstered pair of day beds that face one another to create sort of a living room atmosphere when need be. I love the idea of just a plain, simple tuxedo, custom-made day bed.
These three interior designers have been given a photograph of an empty college dorm room. They have free reign to design it in any way they please.
My name's Laura. My design style is modern, tailored, and classic.
My name is Patrick, and my style is exuberant, charismatic, and colorful.
I'm Xavier, and my design style is purposeful, narrative, and full of life.
No clients, no restrictions, just blank space.
Okay, so my first impressions of this dorm room are, thank God I'm not in college.
It's very standard. It's very uninspiring. This is a place where people are coming to get inspired to learn. And it's kind of a bummer that dorm rooms don't reflect that.
I understand that dorm rooms are notoriously bland and boring. However, we can definitely do better here.
Everything that you do to it has to be able to be removed at the end of the year. But that's a long time, and you want to make it your own, and you want to make it feel like an inspiring place that really reflects your personality.
First of all, I'd like to eliminate the idea of these bunk beds. Nobody wants to climb up and down into a bunk bed every night or morning.
I don't like bunk beds. I always feel like I'm going to roll right out of them and onto the floor in the middle of the night.
If you have a space that is on the smaller side, creating different places to be can actually make it feel more spacious. So even though in this original space, they did have a lot of functionality in that you have your bed and you have your desk and it's all in one place, it feels juvenile and it feels cramped. It's not very graceful. It's not very mature, sophisticated. If we can spread it out and make it feel more sort of luxurious, I think that we can make a much better space for these two college students.
I'm going to kind of try to dismantle these bunk beds. Most college bunk beds are actually, made up of some parts that are stacked. You can usually unscrew them and then move this lower part of the bed down to the ground. So that's exactly what we're going to do.
If we actually put a bed on each side, we can upholster a headboard along the back and along the top. And then we can have lots of pillows on here and just really make it feel so lovely. And you can see already that now it's almost like a lounge space, more so than just for sleeping. It's for hanging out. And then we can put a desk on each side and just kind of continue that sense of symmetry that makes it feel very calm. If you have a day bed and then you have a desk separately, there's more places to be in the room.
Rather than two bunk beds, I think it'd be a great idea to have a upholstered pair of day beds that face one another to create sort of a living room atmosphere when need be. I love the idea of just a plain, simple tuxedo, custom-made day bed with some drawers underneath for extra storage, and thought that this fabric, which has got great utility to it, it's a synthetic but feels like a velvet, is a great color.
So I just imagined two people forced to share a room with completely opposite aesthetic sensibilities. On one side, the punk, one side, the princess, to use some tropes. And then I also thought, picturing these as being maybe art school students, what would it be like if they had to DIY all the decor in their room? On one side, we're going to create a wireframe form out of some sort of like chicken wire or other kind of wire mesh. And we're going to cover that in plaster. So we're going to create a 4-poster bed with really tall, long, spiky posts at all 4 sides. And that we'll be able to just, chip away and remove at the end of the year. On the other side, we're going to utilize the students' sewing skills and slip cover the entire bed in this kind of beautiful gold moire velvet material. And then we're going to trim that out with a beautiful light blue piping and tassels at all 4 corners.
So the second thing I wanted to address was to have proper workstation. I'd love to see a desk that sits by the window. There's a beautiful view out there, and I think you want to be as close to that as possible. I love birch veneer. I think it's a really natural, beautiful product. And I chose some white file cabinets from West Elm.
I would love to figure out some way to make that HVAC unit feel more integrated into the room. So I'd actually like to continue that same surface behind both beds as a built-in shelf, basically. And so as you're lying in bed, you could put a glass of water back there, you could put a book or something like that.
These students are obviously very handy, so they can create their own desks. On one side, I'm going to build a desk out of plywood. I'm going to stain that plywood with kind of like a dark black stain to pick up the grain of the plywood, and then I'm going to wash it over with some colors. Now for the desk chair on this side, a very common first-year art school project is to make a cardboard chair. So obviously we need to have a cardboard chair. On the other side, I decided to create kind of like a nice floating desk with some nice gold chain up to the top. Obviously, knowing this student, they're going to slip cover it in the gold fabric with the tassels and the trimmings. And for the desk chair there, I used one of the ash pillow chairs, which is kind of a fun little like poofy chair in a very like beachy red stripe.
Paired with the desk, I chose 2 Pantone chairs from Design Within Reach. It's light, it's playful, and can be moved around the room easily. I thought it was a great combination with these 2 round tables from MoMA, and can also be taken with you on your next journey.
I would love to bring in a really interesting chair, something sculptural, has a beautiful profile. I'm thinking specifically of these chairs from a Baltimore maker called Crump and Quash. They have a really cool rounded back and an upholstered seat. If we have something in that space that feels really special, I think it really goes a long way to making those college students feel like they have a unique space that is intentional and that they feel can really be a space that they can call their own. So in my college, I had concrete block walls and concrete floor, which, you know, in a sort of minimalist way could be cool, but it just kind of felt cold and industrial.
The floor in my dorm was like that, you know, horrible vinyl tile. I think it was like a speckled gray. Everything was gray.
Pattern on the floor brings me back to my first days at school, thinking, how am I going to make it through here? There's nothing warm or inviting about it. It feels like a place that I can't wait to get away from.
And we can't do anything permanent with the floors. We can't rip these out and put in something more attractive, but we can put down a beautiful rug. And I would love to get a really cool vintage rug. It's going to automatically give some personality and some great texture to the space. They're super sustainable because they already exist. A really big rug that continues over the entire floor actually makes the room feel more spacious. When you have a tiny rug, it sort of feels like a little floating island in the middle of the space. It makes it feel like your room isn't big enough or that the rug isn't big enough.
When I was in school in Providence, we had a lot of discount warehouses, and one of them was a big discount carpet warehouse where you could actually buy, you know, big squares of carpets or length of carpets for pretty cheap. Both of these students are taking a trip, probably in separate Ubers, to go to the carpet place. And one side, we're going to do like really sort of beautiful red carpet, classic, kind of regal, to sort of like complement this kind of fancier side of the room. And then on the other side, I want to do like a really rough, kind of like high pile black shag carpeting that's going to create this like fun, you know, furry ground to stand on.
I definitely wanted to cover these bare floors with something that was cozy and utilitarian. I partnered with Aronson's Carpet, my go-to resource, for squares of broadloom wool that we could then piece together to create a grid-like, interesting pattern on the floor, reminiscent of farmland from the bird's eye view when you fly over.
We have to think of a way to address the design without being too permanent. And one of the great hacks that I love is to actually do an upholstered wall with liquid starch. If you haven't heard of this before, it's actually really cool. So you just paint the wall with liquid starch, you put your fabric on, and then you paint on more liquid starch. You get a little mini squeegee and you squeeze out all of that liquid starch, and then it just dries perfectly, maintaining the original texture. And in this case, I think I would love to do something with a really kind of fun but simple pattern where you can still feel like you can add more personality to the room. And the best part is that you can take the fabric down and you can wash it and use it again. So it's zero waste and really inexpensive. And if I can do it, you can do it.
So I'm imagining these two roommates and their warring aesthetics. On the left side, there's this one reference image that I found of Andy Warhol's studio sometime in the 70s or 80s. He had covered the entire thing, wall, ceiling, every piece of furniture in tin foil. I thought, what better material than tin foil that you can get at the grocery store and you can kind of cover anything with it. So I'm having this student cover all of the walls and the ceiling in tin foil, and I'm going to attach it with this aluminum foil tape, which you can also get at the hardware store. And it's going to create this amazing reflective, super cool wrinkly texture, but then also with this kind of structure of a grid that I'm going to create with the aluminum foil tape. On the other side, I think we have, maybe a textile major or a fashion major, somebody who knows how to work their way around a sewing machine. And so they're going to go to the fabric store. I'm going to have them get a really beautiful peachy colored silk velvet, something with a lot of sheen to it. And I'm going to have them make a drapery that's going to hang from the ceiling all the way around the walls of that space.
I thought it'd be great to bring wallpaper from a company called Muse. It's a non-permanent wallpaper, and I thought that the use of the world map would be a great idea to bring these students' attention to the world outside them and to think globally. So I decided to wrap onto all the walls and the ceiling and right over that AC unit. By wrapping walls and a ceiling in the same paper, I always feel like the eye travels further and the volume becomes larger.
This little heater box that's stuck on this back wall, they're both going to kind of create a little bit of a slip cover for this with probably a cutout around the vent so that the air can still come out. So on the one side, probably like a green faux fur. And then on the other side, continuing using that velvet from the curtains from the drapery.
This light is an unfortunate thing. The placement, it bothers me that it's off center.
It's one of those horrible like fluorescent ceiling lights, and it's very clearly on one side of the room.
That pesky light that we couldn't change. One of my favorite lighting designers is Ingo Mauer, and tried to emulate one of his fixtures by taking 3 layers white transparent fabric and suspending them in a gradation form down so that it looked sort of like a cloud.
I think in order to address this light on the ceiling, I would love to have a fabric sort of canopy that sits over the light fixture. It's going to distract from the fact that it's actually off center. This canopy can actually be the same width of the window so that it can feel nice and symmetrical. Not only does it improve the look of the light fixture, but it actually will improve the way that light is sort of diffused throughout the whole room.
I just had him paint kind of a relief of a grasping hand on there, which is a little scary, a little punk, a little like horror movie. I think that would be a kind of fun antagonistic gesture to the space next door. So for the other lighting on this half of the space, I wanted to, echo this kind of like human body part element theme. I got these 2 kind of like desk IKEA lamps that are little globes and had them painted as eyeballs. So there's kind of like these eyeballs coming off of the wall. The cords just kind of trail down and plug it into the outlet down there. That gives it a little spooky horror show punk element to that lighting scheme. On the other side, I made this like kind of fun obelisk out of just a wireframe and some waxed canvas. And that we would use as a lampshade basically over whatever light base you could get from IKEA. That'll kind of create a fun little glow, but then it's also this kind of very formal, beautiful pointy form that will sit on top of the kind of a cool half column plaster, a side table.
I would love to put sconces, plug-in sconces, because we can't do anything hardwired, that can mount right on the wall so that each student can have access to light, and then they can have even more floor space because they won't need like side table to put a proper lamp on.
Over the workstation desk, I chose 2 Jean Prouvé Petit Potence light fixtures that are industrial, clean, and easy to use. I thought that it was a great pairing with the Prouvé to mix the GL Day lights that are really colorful and fun. They're playful, they're youthful, they're also highly indestructible.
The last thing, it's kind of like the jewelry of the room, is the decor. And I would love to have on this daybed lots of beautiful pillows and beautiful fabrics. And I'd love to also do some plants flanking the windows. We could have some really cool wall planters. Plants over time can sort of drape and trickle down and really feel very welcoming as you're walking into the space. If you are in college and you're not necessarily in your room very much, something like a pothos is going to be perfect for wall hanging because they actually put up with a lot. They're very forgiving, but they also drape really well, and they don't necessarily need as much direct light as other plants do. And then they also will not die on you immediately if you forget to water them when you go home for Christmas.
I also want to add cork that runs along the perimeter of the desk for mood boards or for reminders. Cork is a great material. It's easy breezy, inexpensive, looks great. The window shade, I thought it would be great to use bamboo roll-up. They're easy, they're classic, inexpensive. Palette-wise, tone-wise was really nice with the desktop and the cork. On the daybeds, I chose some Pottery Barn white cotton quilted blankets that can be easily washed, and paired those.
زي ما شفنا هنا المثال ده، الغرفة اتقسمت نصين، وكل نص منهم اتعمل بديزاين يعتبر يعني اكستريم بالنسبة للتاني، بس within الهارموني زي ما المصمم ما كان بيتكلم هنا. هو الفلسفة ورا التصميم ده زي ما قال إن هو يعني أي اتنين طلبة أول مرة يسكنوا مع بعض أو يبقوا مع بعض في الدورم بيبقوا مختلفين عن بعض في حاجات كتير، وبعد كده مع الوقت بيبتدوا إن هما يبقى فيه هارموني ما بينهم، ويبقى فيه انسجام ما بينهم مع الوقت يعني. فده الفلسفة ورا التصميم هنا. وشايفين بقى اختياره للماتيريالز والالوان والامبريشن او الستايل بتاع التصميم للجنبين عامل ازاي.
With Paul Smith striped pillows in this yellow and blue and orange. It has great mood.
بالنسبة للتصميم هنا، فهنا الفلسفة وراه ان هو الهدف منه انه يبقى مستخدم يعني colors بشكل واضح، تدي نوع من البهجة او يعني ال positive aspect للطلبة اللي موجودين. وفي نفس الوقت الستايل بتاع الغرفة زي ما ذكر المصمم هو جلوبال، حاجة يعني تتماشى مع كل الثقافات، أو يعني زي مفهوم بالظبط العولمة أو التصميم الواحد اللي يتقبله الجميع يعني. فدي برضو فلسفة في التصميم باستخدامه لخلفيات للحوائط عبارة عن خريطة العالم، ألوان يعني ألوان كلها أساسية basic colors، وألوان يعني برضو هادية في الجزء بتاع المكتب والواجهة بتاعت الغرفة عند الشباك، بحيث انها تعمل نوع من الهدوء والتركيز للطلبة اثناء المذاكرة.
Movement. I definitely thought that we needed some shelving in here, so I decided to use Bitso shelving, one of my favorite systems designed by Dieter Rams, in white. They're great because they're an investment, but you can take them with you once you're completed your college studies.
So a very element of this room is sort of already decor. This is just starting out the semester. Just imagine what's going to happen by the end of the semester. It's going to be even crazier. The one thing I did want to add is something reflective, some mirror, I think. And on this side, a very traditional mirror element in a lot of very fancy old houses is this kind of like beautiful gilt convex mirror that you would see, you know, at the top of a staircase or above a mantle. We can't afford that because we're college students here. So I found this convex traffic mirror that you'll often see driving to look around the corner. So it kind of accomplishes the same thing. It's got a really nice red frame around it, and I think it looks perfect in this space.
So I love how this design is coming together. I would want this to be my dorm room. I'm quite jealous that it can't be my dorm room. It feels really warm.
These students,
and so just decided to split it, I think.
It was off center.
That's awful.
And it was just like, so yeah, similar to Patrick, I draped fabric over it to kind of create like a.
في التصميم الثالث زي ما احنا شايفين كان التصميم هنا كان الفلسفة وراه انه يبقى بألوان هادية، تعمل نوع من الريلاكسيشن للطلبة اللي موجودين، ويستخدم يعني أماكن النوم هي اللي تكون ناحية الشباك، برضو زي التصميم اللي هو المقسوم نصين، والمكاتب تبقى لورا، بحيث يبقى فيه يعني نوع من السوشياليزيشن ممكن يتم على السراير اللي متصممة كأنها كاوتشز قدام بعض، بحيث انها تنفع للنوم او تنفع للجلوس والتواصل. نفس بالظبط الفلسفة بتاعة المشروع التصميم الجلوبال في اختياره برضو لشكل السراير هناك، بحيث برضو انه يشجع على السوشياليزيشن، بس مختلف عنه في البوزيشن. يعني هنا السراير اقرب للشباك والمكاتب هي اللي موجودة ورا. التصميم التاني كان المكاتب هي الأقرب للشباك عشان يكون أقرب لمصدر الإضاءة والفيو أثناء وقت المذاكرة والتركيز وكده. والسراير أو أماكن النوم أو الاسترخاء هي اللي تكون متأخرة لورا شوية بعيد عن الشباك. فهنا احنا نقدر نشوف الاختلافات في التصميمات الثلاثة، من حيث الفرنيتشر، من حيث الماتيريالز، من حيث الإضاءة، من حيث عناصر الديكور. كلها زي ما قلنا مؤثرات للتصميم، بتأثر على الانطباع والإدراك بتاع الفراغ وأسلوب التفاعل مع الفراغ. ودي حاجات زي ما شفنا، برغم ان الفراغ واحد، فراغ ثابت بنفس ابعاده، بنفس الوظيفة بتاعته المطلوبة، بنفس الظروف، الفيو بتاعه، والمكان الشباك واحد، مكان الباب واحد، الحاجات دي كلها، لكن التصميم نفسه باختلاف الافكار فيه له تأثيرات مختلفة على اليوزر الموجود جوه، مع أفكار زيادة تم اقتراحها في البدايل دي. مثلا أماكن للتخزين، زي ما شفنا التصور الجلوبال اختار إن أماكن النوم أو السراير المتصممة دي تكون فيها من تحت زي مكان للتخزين جواها، عشان يقدر يخزن فيه حاجته لو هو مش محتاجها في الوقت الحالي أو لحين استخدامها بعد كده. ففي أفكار للتخزين، أفكار للجلوس، أفكار للسوشياليزيشن اللي ممكن يتم، للنوم، للمذاكرة، للأنشطة المختلفة اللي ممكن يحتاجها الطالب في الغرفة بتاعته. وكده تكون نهاية الحلقة النهاردة، ونلتقي إن شاء الله في الحلقات القادمة.